I record.
Recording is in progress.
Hello everyone and welcome to Intuitive Minds by Shelley and myself, where we elevate consciousness globally. We have a very special guest back today, Graham, but I'm not going to spoil any fun. Shelley is going to introduce Graham and tell us lots more about Graham. I'm Dr. James Adele from Lifestyle Clinic, where I have been practicing integrated health for the last 24 years. I love helping patients to restore their health naturally with homeopathic medicine, herbal medicine, where nutrition is always the foundation for optimal health. I also have an energy balancing discipline called biogeometry, where we do energy balancing. We, Shelley and myself, also have a business, Philippolis Retreats, where we run leadership and transformational retreats, where we assist business leaders to become consciousness leaders in business. Now I'm going to give Shelley the opportunity to introduce herself and our guest speaker, Graham. Shelley, the floor is yours. Go for gold, girl.
Thank you, James, for a happy 2024. And yes, James, how long we've been in business together, hey? Individually. My name is Shelley Ruth Wyndham. I have a degree in psychology and a postgraduate qualification in natural medicine, underpinned by quantum physics. I call myself a transformational life, but effectively I'm a spiritual healer and teacher. I'm dedicated to help people become aware of self and the connection that we have with self and the earth and other dimensions and other realms, so that we walk this earth with greater awareness. It is my privilege and honor to introduce again to our Intuitive Minds, Graham Clack, who has the most intriguing title, and you do come up with titles for your chats with us, Graham. The role of the soil food web in enhancing health. It is my absolute joy, and James and myself are so happy to welcome you back. Welcome back, Graham. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, James, for inviting me.
I came on a walkabout at your farm, and the first introduction of you at our personal, when we had a little chat here on Intuitive Minds, was such an incredible process, such an overarching process, that I did not realize how much information you have. You can actually come forward and offer these incredible packages of information with us. And this one today being soil. And when I walked with you on your farm, I got a whole appreciation. I'm pretty aware of certain things. I was truly blown away with your philosophy. So I give the floor to you. I think this is an amazing topic, and I can't wait to hear what you're going to share with us today. Over to you.
Well, thanks very much. There we are. You see the slideshow.
Yes, perfect.
Soil food web in an of our farming activities, the state of the health of the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and humans. And it's all interrelated. And what I would like to just talk about is soil today, because that's directly linked to our health. So now here we are. Right, there we are. It's working. So yes, just a slide of the soil food web, and when it's just a brief slide just to show you what we have. Left-hand side of the slide, you'll see the plants and the shoots. roots and shoots and so forth. And in the soil, you have bacteria, bacillus, various types of fungi, nematodes, arthropods, and protozoa, etc. And moving up to the larger critters that are on the surface of the soil, such as moles and birds and so forth. And what's happening in the soil below our feet is a galactic type of war that's taking place. Everybody, there's lots of feeding going on and hierarchies. But the whole trick to soil health and plant health is the balance of the soil. Here's another little slide just depicting the various critters that you find in the soil, millipedes and flies and roundworm, protozoa, bacteria, etc. I'll move on. This particular slide, bacteria, those tiny little dots, that's one drop of water on a slide. And that's just a photograph or a clip of my compost, actually. And it is just full of bacteria and protozoa, etc. And the next one, this one is very interesting because there you will see the mycelium or fungal filaments, which play a very, very important role in the soil. And I'll just play this one quickly. I'm particularly interested in the mycelium, which you're looking at there, those long threads. And we'll just talk about that just now. And right, and now here's a nice photograph of a protozoan. And soil has plenty of these protozoa. They feed on bacteria. And there's a shot of a nematode. Now there's approximately 3,000 species of nematodes in the soil. And some of them are single-celled and some of them are multi-celled. And a lot of them are extremely beneficial. And but they also have issues with some of the farmers, creating havoc in particularly areas where there's very sandy soils. We'll talk about that just now. And yeah, so I'll just go through all the soil aspects, and then we'll link the health requirements and all that to it. So I'm going to just quickly talk about fungi. We have two types of fungi, saprophytic fungi. It's the type of mushrooms that we eat and we see on the surface on logs of trees or in forests. And then below that, you have under the soil in the ground, you have a mycorrhiza fungi, which is below the surface of the soil. And I'd just like to make comment here that saprophytic fungi releases various enzymes to break down and digest lignin, cellulose, chitin, and all the materials that you find in a forest, logs of trees and so forth. They break them down into simple soluble compounds that can be absorbed by the plants as nutrients. So it's a whole nutrients cycle that's taking place. Now, and on the bottom point here, without these digestive activities, forests would disappear under a mountain of logs and leaves. So this is the fungus also plays an exceptionally important role in our soil ecology. There are a couple of shots of the saprophytic fungi that we are familiar with. It's lots of mushrooms there on this tree stump in the forest. And I'll talk a bit about the mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhiza means fungus root, and why they say fungus root is because mycorrhiza fungi is also known as mycelium. They have hyphal elements or threads that you saw in the previous slide. And they play an extremely important role because they actually have a symbiotic relationship with the plants, and they attach to the root hairs of the plants. And they act as extensions of the roots of the plants and are able to bring nutrients from distant, from many, many hundreds of meters away to the plant and feed the plant. And nutrients are moving backwards and forwards as well. It is also, they've come to understand that plants and trees and so forth can feed their seedlings, which are hundreds of meters away from the tree through this mycorrhizal fungi. And there is talk about also the transfer of information along these threads as well. So they play an extremely important role in soil biology, nutrition, and soil chemistry. And there are two types of fungi. The ones that go into the root hairs, some of them actually penetrate the cells, and others actually wrap the filaments around the cells. They're both symbiotic. They both work very well with the plants. And what is also very interesting is, that when the plants are going through the photosynthesis process, they are creating sugars, and they're pumping these sugars or polysaccharides into the soil, approximately 30% of the soil into the soil through the root hairs to feed the soil food web, including the fungi and the bacteria and the protozoa, etc. And that is also a symbiotic relationship. So the plant benefits from the microbes and the fungi, and vice versa. Here's a photograph. You'll see top two there on the left is mycorrhizal fungi. You'll see it, all the white filaments. On the right is without the filaments, that's just the root hairs. And then the picture below, you'll see all the mycelium attached to the roots. So this is also one of the reasons why modern organic farming, regenerative farming, don't till the soil. We don't want to disturb that and dig it or plow it, because then you will break up all this fungal network that exists. All you want to do is plug your plants into that network so that they can attach to the root hairs as quickly as possible. And yeah, there's a nice photograph of it as well. Another one, and this is a photograph of a small pine tree in a glass box. It's a seedling, and you can see the root system, and you can see the mycelium attached to that. It's I say to a lot of the people that come to the farm, you can consider it as hair extensions latched onto the hair. And besides the fungi, the soil microbes break down organic matter as well. They play an extremely important role. And this is what these microbes look like. This is bacillus, bacteria. And soil microbes also are breaking down all these elements. They also involved in recycling the nutrients. So they basically return nutrients to the organic mineral form, which plants can take up again. This process is known as mineralization and nutrient cycling. What I really need to say to you is that all the inorganic minerals, the elements in the soil, plants cannot take that up at all. And but the soil microbes and the fungi, etc., when they consume these elements and die, they make it carbon atoms attached to these elements and molecules, and there's a bond that takes place, a carbon bond, which makes it available for the plant to take and turns it from an inorganic substance to organic substance. And this is one of the crucial things for soil health and in turn plant health. and then, of course, in turn, animal health, eating the plants, and then human health. Because in modern agriculture, as you know, they're using synthetic fertilizers and lots of toxic sprays, but the synthetic fertilizers are actually sterilizing the soil and killing off all the microbial life in the soil. And as a result, in modern agriculture, so-called modern agriculture, the plants are unable to take up a vast, diverse array of these minerals and elements, because the microbes don't exist, and they're unable to process the inorganic minerals in the soil and make them available for us to consume. And then soil biology is the core of regenerative agriculture, of any ecosystem restoration project. It's the soil and the microbes that drive the system. Now, and by introducing microbes through compost or through animal manures, etc., accelerates the regenerative process dramatically. So more importantly, it delivers beneficial microorganisms to the soil. Now, I've seen soils that have really been damaged and really poor with a very low soil organic matter. And Mother Earth is really able to spring back and regenerate extremely rapidly if you give her the chance. Mm-hmm. So even although the most terrible soils, the most damaged soils, can be sorted out in really in a very quick time, within 1 year, and it will improve as the years go by. And also, one of the most important things that soil microbes do is they create soil structure. Some soil microbes and fungi secrete sugars or polysaccharides. They secrete glues or gums, colloids, which is a substance, which is like a jelly-type substance. And glycoproteins or glomalin is just recently been discovered. It's also a glue or gum. And that's why when you take good soil, organic soil, and you squeeze it in your hand and you open it up, it stays in the clod. It doesn't just run through your fingers like sand does. And then fungal hypha or filaments, the plants, also bind the soil aggregates together. And we want a soil that is highly aggregated and has a nice, good crumb structure. This is very important. And at the end of the day, we like to say that the soil must look like black cottage cheese that is fully aggregated, lots of clumps. And it is pitch black, and when it's looking like that, it contains a huge amount of humus, which is a stable element of the compost, which has the ability to retain moisture and water and only release it to the plants when it's needed. And also it's got lots of enzymes in there, which looks after the immune system of the plants, or benefits the immune system of the plants. Here's a picture of glomalin, or one of the glues that Dr. Sarah Wright discovered. And then the other interesting thing about soil microbes is nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation, basically, all plants, like legumes, for instance, leguminous plants, all plants that have a pod with the seeds in a pod, those plants have the ability to interact with a certain type of microbe around the root system that takes nitrogen out of the atmosphere and converts it into a nitrogen that's available in the soil for the plants to take up. And nitrogen is one of the macronutrients that a plant requires. Macronutrients being N, P, K. N being nitrogen, P being phosphorus, K being potassium. And agriculture depends heavily on nitrogen. And basically this bacteria, they converts the nitrogen gas in the atmosphere to ammonia or ammonium or nitrates, And if you look at those symbols there, they're all ammonia, where there's nitrates of ammonium, they all carry nitrogen molecule. And a lot of these microbes live freely in the soil as well, in natural grasslands and compost, while others are associated to the roots of the plant, like the legumes, for instance. So all the acacia trees, for instance, clover, red clover, crimson clover, white clover, all these plants, even Port Jackson here locally in South Africa, they have a pod with these. They do a lot of good by putting nitrogen into the soil for other plants to use. This is a shot I included here just to show you extremely toxic green algae caused by nitrates from the synthetic fertilizers in big ag. These chemicals that are putting onto the soil basically leaches into the water system and pollutes the water system. All the aquifers are polluted in our vegetable growing areas here in the Cape. And this is what it looks like. It's extremely toxic. Nothing can live in that water. Here's another photograph in the vegetable growing region in the Western Cape. You can see all the green algae on the top. This is just basically a sump or a dam that's been dug out with the excavator, and they pump from this dam onto the crops. But it's so full of toxic chemicals, it's crazy. Yeah, somebody said, why make use of synthetic chemical fertilizers when it's freely available in the atmosphere? So synthetic fertilizers kill off soil life and sterilize and toxify the soils. This photograph here is just depicting of how this bacteria enters also the root hairs and forms nodules here full of nitrogen. And microbes perform different tasks. You look at this BT, soil bacterium called Bacillus. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but farmers just call this particular Bacillus BT. And they use it as a natural spray, a foliar spray to control caterpillar pests or crops. Now, some people don't like using it. I have used it in the early days, but I don't use it anymore. I prefer using mechanical means. We use 20% shade cloth with small row covers to prevent the butterflies from laying eggs on the brassicas, for instance. But yeah, and then a well-known product called ivermectin, which a lot of people are familiar with. There's also a soil microbe that was isolated in the soil by a Japanese scientist. And that product's been used for about 40 years in the agricultural industry as a parasitic control. And it's very interesting to see that doctors are using ivermectin now, doing trials, and they've a lot of the trials that are taking place now, they say it's actually curing certain cancers. And that's very interesting because they find that there's certain cancers as a link to parasites in the body. And ivermectin obviously is wiping out the parasites and curing the cancer. So that's an interesting thing. And then another type of microbe is a trichoderma, basically. It's a fungus, actually. And they've created biocontrol agents to prevent certain fungal diseases, the diseases of plants and root diseases. I don't use them. When your soil is balanced after a few years of farming and feeding your soil, it's really about farming your soil, and the plants will take care of themselves. That's how it is. We'll just move on to nematodes. Nematodes, as I said earlier, there was about 3,000 different species. The ones that the farmers don't like, basically what happens, the nematode burrows into the root hairs, and the female lays eggs on the root hairs, and they start consuming all the nutrients from the plant. The plant becomes sick, and the insects will start attacking the plant. And it's just the same as the animal kingdom, basically. And if you pull the plant out, you actually can physically see some these nodules on the roots, and then you know you have nematode issues. So some nematodes are beneficial to farmers. They control nematodes control cutworms, fleas, ants, termites, grubs, and lawn insect pests. What the farmers are always talking about, and they seem to, when I speak to farmers, they only know about the negative nematodes, the parasitic nematodes, which damage vegetable plants, and they're also known as root knot nematodes. I have a slide here that shows you. There's a potato cyst nematode, and those are the egg-full cysts that the females have laid. Plants don't do well when that happens. And the way to sort it out is just through two things: crop rotation, regular crop rotation, and adding biomass to the soil. In other words, adding biodiversity to the soil food web. When you have lots of compost, and whether you put it on by compost or cover crops or animal manure, you need biodiversity in the soil. And once that is established, and I have sorted out nematode issues in one season just by crop rotation and adding compost. But in mainstream agriculture, they basically fumigate the soils. They will deep plow the soils, and then there are companies that actually provide the service. I've seen them driving around, fumigation services for agriculture, and they will spread all these toxic chemicals on the soil, and then they cover the many hectares with rolls of plastic behind the tractor so that the fumes can't escape into the atmosphere. And I was talking to one cabbage farmer, well, he was planting cabbages at that particular time, and he had nematode issues, and he went through this process, and these two laborers that applied these chemicals were taken to hospital because they were wearing gum boots or Wellington boots, and their legs swelled up so much that they had to be removed out of hospital with scalpels, etc. And that is poison that's going into our food, and that's what we are eating when we go to any one of these stores, unless it's organic. So these are the types of 4 types of nematodes. You get bacterial root feeders, fungal feeders, predatory nematodes, and they also fulfill the role of dispersing microbes in the soil because they're mobile. Now, nutrient cycling, nematodes are also important for nutrient cycling. Like protozoa, nematodes are important in mineralizing or releasing nutrients in a plant-available form. When nematodes eat bacteria, fungi, ammonium is released, and which is made available in a soluble form for the plant to take up. So we spoke about this. This is a slide, just what I mentioned to you. How to prevent harmful nematodes is through crop rotation and amending the soil with organic matter, such as compost. And one of the rule of thumbs is when you're doing crop rotation, when you're doing root crops like carrots or beetroot, etc., you should not plant again a root crop once you plant one root crop. Otherwise, then there might be a buildup of pathogens. We don't want that to happen. So we keep rotating. Leaf crop followed by a root crop, etc. I'll move on to the next slide. Yep, we've discussed this one. Prevention is the best cure. Yeah, I'll just move on to the next slide. Here is a photograph of a nematode actually entering a root hair. That's what they look like. Intriguing. Now we go back to soil. Soil tilth is a physical condition of soil, especially in relation to its suitability for planting or growing crops. Now, factors that determine tilth include the formation and stability of aggregated soil particles of humus, colloids, moisture content, degree of aeration, soil biota, rate of water infiltration, and drainage. We don't like using heavy machinery, heavy farm equipment on soils because it compacts the soil and damages the soil food web. In regenerative farming practices, they will use heavy tractors with crimping rollers in the front, to roll down the cover crops and crimp them, and planters at the back. But they only do one pass with the machinery in the front and the back of the tractor, not 8 different passes, for plowing and then disking and then harrowing and then planting again and then herbicide spraying and other spraying. So there's a huge reduction in fuel costs, and a huge reduction in capital costs for heavy machinery, which costs millions of dollars. So a lot of these regenerative farmers in America particularly are actually doing such a good job that they are going off subsidies from the state, and they also are not buying insurance anymore because they insure themselves. It's more profitable for them. And the production is the same, if not higher, than conventional agriculture. So mainstream agriculture, big chemical industries, they will always use the mantra that organic farming will never be able to feed the planet. It's a bunch of lies. Gabe Brown, who's a consultant in America for regenerative agriculture, he's got 135 million hectares on his books where he consults. His own personal farm is 1.25 times the production of state average, and it is 100% organic. He's never used any herbicides, pesticides, or anything. Only some cattle and cover crops. Yeah, and he has lots of diversity as well. That's the key to it. Diversity in the soil, diversity with the plants. That's just very important. Benefits of soil organic matter and humus. Humus can hold the equivalent of 80 to 90% of its weight in moisture, and therefore increases the soil capacity to withstand drought conditions. Colloids and aggregates are hydrophilic, that means it attracts water, and not hydrophobic. And humus really is black gold. That's what we try to do. My soils were very highly compacted when I started farming there, and but today I can go there into one of the vegetable beds and I can just burrow down with my fingers up to my elbow, and with ease. It's so friable, it's so loose, the soil. The soil needs to have this looseness or this aggregation to it to allow water infiltration and also to allow air to get down there for the aerobic bacteria. And what we're really looking at is the aerobic bacteria, which is in the top 6 inches or 12 inches, depending where you're farming. That top 6 inches, which is the skin of Mother Earth, basically, has a lot of diversity in it. And, those microbes, they live off oxygen. And after these farmers come along with their big plowing equipment, they're taking the anaerobic bacteria, which is deeper down, putting onto the top, and they're putting the aerobic bacteria deep down, and you're wiping out these colonies of bacteria, microbes, and recolonize. So we, for instance, in the forest where all the leaves will fall down to the forest floor, and all the microbes and fungi and earthworms, etc., will create the correct soil profile that they like. The biochemical structure of humus enables it to moderate or buffer excessive acid or alkaline soil conditions. So organic farmers or regenerative farmers don't have to worry too much about the pH of the soil. But in monoculture systems, it plays an incredibly important role. If you don't have your pH exactly right, your crop's going to fail. You don't have that issue, or don't have those worries at all. I used to, right at the beginning, used to test the pH, and after 6 months, I threw those two instruments away because they were of no benefit to me anymore. And soil health is the capacity of soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. Without soil, there would be nowhere to grow nutrient-dense, healthy food that is sustenance of life. The healthier the soil, the more nutrients, and I've got here in brackets a full spectrum of the periodic table. The plant can soak up, thus the healthier the plant, animal, and human kingdoms are. Now, this does not take place in conventional agriculture, because what the farmers are doing, they are putting the macronutrients, NPK, and they're doing some of the other nutrients. They'll do maybe a dozen nutrients that are lacking, and they will spread that onto the farm, and all the other nutrients are not available, and there are no microbes to get hold of the elements there to make them bioavailable either. So yes, they will grow. The soil is basically just a medium to hold, for the roots to hold the plant upright, but it's got no life in it. Soil organic matter in most of our growing regions now, our grassland regions, is down to 1%, 1.5%, 1%, or just below 1%. And it should be at least 10% or more. This is what we strive to do, have at least 10% soil organic matter. And our laboratories don't have the ability to measure plant-soluble elements. In other words, organic elements. They can only measure the synthetic, the inorganic elements. And so in America, it's called the Heaney test. It's a Dr. Heaney. He's got labs all over America now where they can actually measure this. In South Africa, some of the farmers send their soil samples all the way to America to have them tested. I need to mention is Kirlian photography. Dr. Kirlian was a Russian scientist. He was electronics laboratory where he had all these oscilloscopes and machinery, frequency generators, etc. And a butterfly flew through his window one day, and he took a photograph of this beautiful butterfly. And when he developed it, the old system of developing film, he saw that it had an auric field around the butterfly. And so being a scientist, he replicated that and discovered what is known today as Kirlian photography, where camera has the ability to photograph the auric field of inanimate as well as animate objects, because everything is frequency. And here's a picture on the next slide. Here's a picture of a Kirlian photograph of the mushroom, and the one below is of a shell. It's a fossil, actually. Now I'll just go quickly through the plant nutrients, because we're going to move on to the health side more as well. Those are the primary. We have primary nutrients, secondary nutrients, micronutrients, trace elements. Now, mainstream agriculture is dealing with primary elements and secondary nutrients. That's about it. not micronutrients at all. And so we go to the primary nutrients as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We know that nitrogen is good for greening the leaves. So all plants that have green leaves like spinach, lettuce, and so forth needs lots of nitrogen. And then phosphorus is good for root growth, and the potassium is good for flowers and fruit. So that's the NPK. We move on to the secondary nutrients, which is calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Calcium is important for the continuous cell division of plants. Same as the skeletal system and plants as well. Magnesium is a key element of chlorophyll production, and sulfur integral part of amino acids, which help develop enzymes and vitamins. Micronutrients are boron, chlorine, copper, magnesium, molybdenum, and zinc. And basically, they are activators of many plant functions behind the scenes. And then there's a few elements here which come from the atmosphere and water: nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And they are extracted from the air and water to make up the bulk of the plant nutrients. Then we come to trace elements, and this is where organic farming really sets farming apart from the rest of conventional farms, because there are many more elements in the soil which are inorganic, and the microbes and the fungi and the nematodes, well, their role is to consume this lot and make it bioavailable for plants to use. And I can give you an example. I've got here in brackets the last two words, arsenic effect. Basically, that's just to remind me, if we had to take a pill of arsenic, we'd be dead in a very short time. And however, if we don't have arsenic in very trace amounts, our nervous system wouldn't operate properly either. So there's a place for everything. Now, I've got volcanic rock dust. Volcanic rock is full of trace elements. And if you can get a source of that and you can grind it into a fine powder, like a talcum powder, very fine states, the microbes can consume it. It's a great product to put into your compost so that the microbes can process it and make all these trace elements available when you use it. And this is really only required as a once-off thing. Once you're getting your soil right, you don't have to, and you're in an organic system, you don't have to worry about that.
Electricity problem.
Oh, right. So basically, increasing soil fertility, how do we do that? There's a few ways of doing it. You add organic matter on top of your beds. You add manures, composting, and you can tap into animal power. Planting cover crops, mulch, and compost tea drenching. Basically, using compost tea is using very well composted handful of that, putting in a big drum of water, 200 liters, putting a little compressor there with fine bubbles. You feed a teaspoon of unsulfur molasses as food for the microbes, and they breed very, very rapidly. You can let this machine run for about an hour or two, and it looks like black tea, and you can use it as a foliar feed. It's excellent, and it costs you absolutely nothing to produce. Now, the regenerative farmers, how they tap into animal power and put microbes into the soil just to kickstart it is by introducing cattle in their grasslands. Their cover crops are very, very tall, up to about 5-6 feet. And they allow the cattle to graze it down to 30 to 50% so that it doesn't damage the cover crops, and they move them on with electric fences. But you end up with every square meter having manure and urination taking place there, which is putting nutrients and bacteria, more importantly, bacteria into the soil. And they have found that by doing this, they have an increase of 20% production. It's quite substantial. And it's very interesting, the cattle, because the cow has got 4 stomachs. And when you go into the detail of all the microorganisms that are in the cow's stomach and what's in the soil is very, very similar. Microbial biomass, living microbial biomass includes microorganisms responsible for decomposition of both plant residues and organic matter. Humus is generally the stable fraction of soil organic matter that is formed from decomposed plant and tissue. Its final product of decomposition. Humus is really what we really want. It's this black gold. It's got all the nutrients in. It's all got billions of microbes in there, and it's holding the moisture, releasing the moisture when the plant requires it. It's really a miraculous substance. Now, soil mineralization. Yeah, and I've touched on this already. Conventional agroscience postulate that inorganic compounds and trace elements cannot be mineralized. They are immobilized and thus cannot be assimilated by the plants. This is absolutely true. But what changes it all is the microbes. This is why in conventional agriculture, there are no microbes. They've all been wiped out. Very, very few remaining. And carbohydrates or carbon, which comes from CO2 in the atmosphere, found in organic matter, is the food source for microbes, which is essential for balance in a stable soil and the mineralization of inorganic compounds and trace elements. Soil mineralization is performed by both microbes, fungi, and nematodes. They convert inorganic minerals to the organic state. And it also converts insoluble minerals into soluble minerals. They perform the miracle of life and unlock tied up minerals as they make them available to plants. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, carbon is an organic element, and all living creatures are carbon-based life forms. So a bond with a carbon atom makes an element bioavailable and thus usable by a living organism such as a plant, an animal, and kingdom. So if we have healthy soil, we have healthy plants, and we have healthy plants, we have healthy animals, and in turn, healthy humans. An inorganic mineral is a material that has never been alive. It has not been bonded with a carbon molecule, and it would never bring life to a cell. In fact, the body will treat these materials or metals as if they are toxins. So that's a soil horizon. That's a typical soil horizon. And you can see the top layer, the O layer is organics. That's where all the action takes place with these microbes. And the ideal soil is considered to be loam, which is a mix of sand, salt, and clay. And then you add organic matter to that, the soil biology. And this is what creates the wonderful loamy soils that everybody's looking for. There you can see the organic matter at the top 6 inches. You can see a bit of clay in the middle. Now, again, I've mentioned this, but alkalinity, most vegetables like slightly acidic state, neutral being 7, and they like to grow, most of the vegetables like to grow around about 6.5, 7. And if you go look at berries like blueberries, etc., they are they like very acidic soils. But again, we don't have to worry about any of this in an organic system. Now,
Yes.
the soil food web. Let me just have a look here. Yeah, the link with the soil food web and the human gut microbiome. Soil and the human gut contain approximately the same number of active microorganisms, while the human gut microbiome diversity is only 10% that of soil biodiversity, and has decreased dramatically with modern lifestyle. This is due to the loss of soil biodiversity. So you find in rural areas, people are more healthy because they are interacting with the soil. The human intestinal microbiome, as well as the soil root microbiome, are superorganisms, which by close contact replenish each other and with inoculants, genes, growth-sustaining molecules, nutrients. The large diversity of microbiota in soil affects the microbial ecology, including its important role of nutrient cycling. And looking at the entire ecological soil system, the human body and its microbes can be regarded as extended genome. So what's taking place in the soil is taking place in your gut to a certain degree. And what is taking place in agriculture today, there is no, or very limited number of microbes living there. It's completely degraded. And soil health directly impacts human health. This is due to the soil microbiome being linked to the human intestinal microbiome. The living environment of urban dwellers show a lower natural biodiversity and exposure to environmental microbes. The loss of contact with outdoor associated natural beneficial microbiota indirectly affects the human gut microbiome and has negative consequences on human health. There is evidence that soil biodiversity is interrelated with the gut microbiome. Agricultural soils have been depleted soil organic matter, and this microbial populations leading to poor soil, plant, and human health. That's the point I wanted to get across, what mainstream agriculture does to our health and how microbes basically make all these nutrients available to us, and how we've destroyed that, and we need to get back into the old ways. Thank you.
Wow.
That is it, Sherry, and I hope that is of interest to you.
Thank you, Graham. That was very interesting.
Wow. As above, so below.
Yes, indeed. And I'm not sure what the time is. I don't know how long that was. I wanted to keep well below an hour there.
We just made it. So can you just give the hosting back to me, Graham? And maybe stop sharing the screen.
Stop share. There we are.
Excellent.
That was amazing, Graham. That was amazing.
Shelley, do you have a question for Graham?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a question, but it's in so much honor around the language of soil food web and the network and sharing of information. My ears perked up. But you know, we really, as a people on this planet, have so much to learn. And we're thinking through the lens of complexity, when it's actually simplicity that is the most complex. And your teaching here is coming back to like the Native American shamanic training of the web of life, and looking at how something that happens in one place affects everything. We're all connected. But the degree of science that's now coming into the soil, the biome, and the verification of the ancient spiritual teachings that are coming forward now There's no question here. I'm just absolutely loving what you've given voice to today, because people need to hear this. We have to go back to the old ways that is going to bring in the noble role of simplicity.
Yes.
Not back into a bygone era, but going back to the wisdoms that we have lost.
Yes.
And bring it center in the stage of everything of our human evolution and life with everything. Because I'm absolutely loving what you've pointed out, and the microbiome and the principle of that, those bugs and the sterilization and the need to over sanitize is garbage.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's just so beautifully put together.
You know, and the other thing, Shelley, is that in the old days, you would walk into your orchard, which was organic because they had cow manure or whatever there, and you'd pick off an apple and eat it, or a peach, and the peach has got microbes all around it, and you're eating that, and it's adding to your health, actually. But you can't do that now. You pick plant, you eat an apple now, they are spraying, they are dipping the fruit now in a chemical called Apeel. It's APEEL, which is highly toxic, and it's to increase shelf life, and also it's to the detriment of our health, actually.
Yes, I have heard about that. And what I'm also going to say is that even when we buy the vegetables from a shop, I support organic, like you know, Graham. But if people go and buy vegetables and then they rinse the fruit and vegetables off, it's still not enough, because it's inside. It's not only on the outside. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we are eating poison.
Yeah, correct.
And we get surprised, by becoming sick, and we don't know why. We've got to go back to the basics, and it's not going back to a bygone era. We have to look through the lens of the wisdom that was lost and bring it center stage and grow forward for evolutional principles.
And I like the way you say it, Shelley. It's very simple, but it's a very complex system, but we don't have to be complicated about it.
Correct. Well, there's a fundamental difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is where we've been going on this planet, with love. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying it from my heart. We've been going in a realm of knowledge, accumulating data. Wisdom is when you go into your heart, because it's not just data. There's greatness in reflection and contemplation. And we're on a tangent, and it's not a healthy one. And we can so turn that round.
Yeah.
Going back into our heart, reflecting, coming and hanging out with people like you, and learning around actually what is going on in the simplicity of things, and getting our life back on track. That Hopi prophecy of the rock, where the one is, following the source energy and the one is without the source energy. We've got to find the source in our heart. We've got to find the source and go back to that, because that's where we flourish. That's where we thrive. And we can do that. And I'm so excited about what you know and what you do, Graham. And I'd love the opportunity to see you training farmers and training food producers in this world. And I'm not joking when I say that, because they need you. We need you. We need more people like you. And that's the way the world, that James and I are working with the holistic view of things, but we work with people like you, Graham. Together we can co-create a beautiful.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I don't see myself as a guru at all. It was a hobby, basically.
Absolutely. Guru's got nothing. Well, GURU, right? But the hierarchical structures, no, we all need to throw that in the rubbish, because we're all learning together. And we need good-hearted people. We need great discernment. We need great wisdom, and the kinds of information that can actually help us.
Yeah. Now, people say to me, why are you teaching people how to grow? It's going to impact your business negatively. I said, no, it's going to impact my business positively.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree.
I work with competition. It's about thriving and working together. There's enough for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's coming from a point of lack.
Yes, that's a consciousness point. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Graham.
Graham, I'm a great supporter of what you do, and I support organic vegetables, and that's what I also tell my patients, to consume organic vegetables. And it is just shocking how the nutrient value has decreased over the last 50 years of the food that we buy.
Exactly.
So, Graham, where can people get hold of you? I think that's very important. And where can they buy your beautiful organic vegetables?
Well, they can contact us on, if they just Google Metro Organics and make contact with us, we can then point them in the right direction, depending where they live, where they can pick up the organic vegetables. But we are concentrated in the Western Cape, in particular Cape Town, really at this point in time. So we do all the suburbs here, really in the southern suburbs and up to the city, and but we haven't ventured into the northern suburbs yet. It's a bit far away, but I have a dream that we need to have an organic veg shop in every single suburb. And that's where we need to be, you know, like the old days, the high street where you go to your greengrocer. There are no greengrocers today.
Absolutely. So this talk will be available on YouTube next week. I will also share it on our Intuitive Minds WhatsApp group. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And a warm heart of thank you, Graham. And Shelley, would you like to say a final word before we close off?
There was a quote that I picked up from one of my individuals that I absolutely love called Greg Braden. And he said these words, it's quantum physics based. If the particles that we are made of can be in instantaneous communication with one another, be in two places at once, and even change the past through choices made in the present, then we can as well. I think these are the kinds of considerations that all of us folk need to start contemplating. We are incredible human beings. We live in an incredible world and universe. And this planet is part of that. But we need to get ourselves right and our relationship with it. The sky's the limit to know that there has never been a limit. And I just say thank you, Graham, because you have inspired and retaught us the role of unity and connection. Thank you so much. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Graham. I wish you all a beautiful day. Till next time. Goodbye.
You too.